Okay, we're at 7 o'clock, so let's get started. First things first, let's do our land acknowledgement. Um, but yeah, I'm going to just invite you to, like myself, make sure that you're here right now, that you're sitting comfortably in your favorite meditation posture, whatever that might be. If you're going to recline, that's fine. Oh, there's just someone else coming in here. Okay, but so yeah, just letting yourself be present in this moment and noticing that you're right here right now, and I welcome you. It's good to be with you all. And as I like to do, we'll start with our land acknowledgement. And again, I just like to remind the purpose of the land acknowledgement, which is hopefully to inspire all of us to be good stewards of the land, the earth, and the water, like this earth, land, water, air. And what is our goal? Just to, again, create more awareness, respect. So let's begin. This land that is known as the Chatham Kent today was established as was established as part of Treaty Number 2, the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790. At that time, the land was also inhabited by the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, the Potawatomi, and the Ojibwe. These indigenous nations, known as the Anishinaabeg and the Lunapui, agreed to the mutual sharing of the land with obligations and responsibilities to the environment. Today, Chatham-Kent neighbors the Lunapui at Delaware Nation, which is also part of the McKee Purchase Treaty, as well as the unceded territory of the Wijwang Walpole Island First Nation. Chatham-Kent continues to be home to diverse First Nations people and Métis people. As beneficiaries, as beneficiaries of the treaty, we recognize that all people have responsibilities, including collective responsibilities to the land, the water, and the air. And so I'm going to invite you to reflect upon how you're upholding these treaty responsibilities, and how you might honor and be a good steward to our environment. So just taking a moment to reflect on what that actually means for all of us, not just for me to repeat it rotely, but just to think, what is that? What does that mean to you? And as I mentioned in my email to you, I thought we could talk today about spring, because it's happening all around us and it's very exciting. And, with that idea of spring, there is the whole rebirth and the promise and even the forgiveness of nature. Nature comes back again and again and supports us and nourishes us. And I guess there's a part of me that thinks that nature must also be very forgiving. And so somehow that connected for me today. So I found some lovely poetry about spring. And then we've got some very, very beautiful words about forgiveness, and we'll meditate on that. So this first poem is by a very famous poet named Christina Rossetti. And it's just called Spring. Frost blocked all the winter. Seeds and roots and stones of fruits, what shall make their sap ascend, that they may put forth shoots, tips of tender green, leaf or blade or sheath, telling of the hidden life that breaks forth underneath, life nursed in its grave by death. Someone else just joining us. Blows the thaw wind pleasantly, drips soaking the rain, by fits look down the waking sun. Young grass springs on the plain, young leaves clothe early hedgerow trees, seeds and roots and stones of fruits, swollen with sap, put forth their shoots. Curl-headed ferns sprout in the lane, birds sing and pair again. There is no time like spring, when life's alive in everything, before new nestlings sing, before cleft swallows speed their journey back. Along the trackless track, God guides their wing. He spreads their table that they nothing lack, before the daisy grows a common flower. Oops, sorry. And there's another poem for everyday spring. Oh, sorry. I think I'm sorry. That poem is not over. The Christina Rossetti poem. I wonder, just one second. Yeah, okay, so we left off. Before the daisy grows a common flower, before the sun has power to scorch the world up in its noontide hour, there is no time like spring that passes by. There is no life like spring life born to die. Piercing the sod, clothing the uncouth clod, hatched in the nest, fledged on the windy bough, strong on the wing, there is no time like spring that passes by. Now newly born, and now hastening to die. And that completes that poem. So, and this next poem is called Spring, and it's by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Nothing is so beautiful as spring, when weeds in wheels shoot long and lovely and lush. Thrush's eggs look like low heavens and thrush. Through the echoing timber does so rinse and ring. The ear it strikes like lightnings to hear him sing. The glassy pear tree leaves and blooms they brush. The descending blue, that blue is all in a rush. With richness, the racing lambs too have their fair fling. What is all this juice and all this joy? A strain of the earth's sweet being in the beginning, in Eden's garden. Have, get, before it cloy, before it cloud, Christ Lord, and sour with sinning. Innocent mind and May Day in girl and boy, most, O maid's child, thy choice and worthy the winning. Today is another poem by someone called Billy Collins. If ever there were a spring day so perfect, so uplifted by a warm, intermittent breeze, that it made you want to throw open all the windows in the house and unlatch the door to the canary's cage. Indeed, rip the little door from its jamb, a day when the cool brick paths and the garden bursting with peonies seemed so etched in sunlight that you felt like taking a hammer to the glass paperweight on the living room end table, releasing the inhabitants from their snow-covered cottage so they could walk out, holding hands and squinting into this larger dome of blue and white. Well, today is just that kind of day. And then I have another poem by William Wordsworth. I heard 1,000 blended notes, while in a grove I sate reclined, in that sweet mood when pleasant thoughts bring sad thoughts to mind. To her fair works did nature link the human soul that through me ran, and much it grieved my heart to think what man has made of man. Through primrose tufts in that green bower, the periwinkle trailed its wreaths, and 'tis my faith that every flower enjoys the air it breathes. The birds around me hopped and played, their thoughts I cannot measure, but the least motion which they made, it seemed a thrill of pleasure. The budding twigs spread out their fan to catch the breezy air, and I must think, do all I can, that there was pleasure there. If this belief from heaven be sent, if such be nature's holy plan, have I not reason to lament what man has made of man? And that is where forgiveness comes in. How do we forgive the things that have happened to us, the things that we need to forgive ourselves for. It's complicated. And I'm going to start with these very, very wise words that I have shared with so many others over the years. And I really don't know who first shared them with me, but I'm going to silently send a message of thanks. So this is just very simply called forgiveness. For the ways that I have hurt and harmed you, have betrayed or abandoned you, caused you suffering, knowingly or unknowingly, out of my pain, my fear, my anger, and my confusion, I ask for your forgiveness. I ask for your forgiveness. For the many ways that I have hurt and harmed myself, that I have betrayed or abandoned myself, out of fear, pain, and confusion, through action or inaction, in thought, word, deed, knowingly or unknowingly, I extend a full and heartfelt forgiveness. I forgive myself. I forgive myself. For the many, many ways that others have hurt, wounded, or harmed me out of their fear, their pain, their confusion, and their anger. I have carried this pain in my heart long enough. To the extent that I am ready, I offer you forgiveness. To those who have caused me harm, I offer my forgiveness. I forgive you. So, what is all this about, this idea of forgiveness? And why would we want to? Why is it important to? And notice I'm not saying that we should, because it's really not about shoulds. It's about why would we want to in the first place? And there's all kinds of interesting research that tells us the benefits of forgiving. And I'm just going to look through that and kind of pick out the highlights for you. There is a practice that we'll do in a minute, but first I want to, here's what I'm looking for. The key lessons in the study of forgiveness, and also why forgiving others is the best thing that we can do for ourselves. So the first thing, it's very much an ancient tradition to forgive people. This concept has been around for a very, very long time. And there are folks that have made a study of this interesting phenomena because it's not an easy thing to do. And yet sometimes, especially if we've had it role modeled for us, or we've been allowed to talk about it, or we've felt that forgiveness, and we've maybe really experienced the beauty and the relief of being forgiven, then it's something that we think to do. But sometimes forgiveness is almost considered a bit of a weakness, that people who do that, who forgive, they're weak and that we can take advantage of them. And strangely, that's just not true. In fact, people who forgive have a great deal of stamina and resilience and tend to lead happier, more contented lives. And if it's not in your nature, meaning if it's not something that you've ever been taught or you've had role modeled for you, the good news is this is very much something that you can learn. So, these folks, these two gentlemen who made it a life's work to study the idea of forgiveness, a man named Enright, actually three of them, Enright, Mabuk, and Santos. They looked at some of the psychological science behind this form of and he calls it a psychotherapy. Basically, it is, I suppose, in its truest sense, because it provides relief. It creates awareness, and so that's often what we try to achieve when we work and invite people to attend counseling and things like that. We're trying to promote awareness and compassion, and that's certainly something. So there's that, and then there's this combination of moral virtues that a lot of religions are founded on that premise that if you repent and do enough penance that you shall be forgiven. And I suppose in Christianity, that's the whole reason that Jesus died on the cross, so that we may all live on and be reborn and forgiven, if that happens to be your particular faith. So they wanted to understand, more about this idea of forgiveness and why it can be so powerful, and there is some tremendous importance to it. So it goes like this. When we actually really examine the concepts of forgiveness and what it means, it's not about forgetting. It's not about letting it go. It's not about not feeling angry if we feel angry, but it's about not letting it be a life sentence, if that makes sense, that we don't continue to be heavy with all of this, that at some point in time, there is this thing, and you've heard me talk about this so many times, of acceptance. And again, acceptance doesn't mean that we agree with it or that we think it's no big deal. It's all of those things and more. But there is some real benefit in letting go of that. And that's much, of course, easier said than done, but there are ways to do that. And forgiveness is one of the first steps in letting go of something. It involves, looking at what happened. It involves looking at the offending person. It involves beginning to see our common humanity and accepting that people make mistakes, that we're not perfect, that sometimes because of lack of awareness or lack of knowledge or capacity, people can't be kind to us in the way that we always hope for or need, that sometimes people can't be thoughtful of ourselves or even just of others, that they, because of their own pain or suffering, I'm harking back to those initial words that I spoke to you, because of their pain and their suffering, they hurt us or other people. And so what does that mean? That means that we want to somehow find a way to exist knowing those things. And I've got someone else coming in now. And what does that mean? That means that we have to really look and feel what has happened and not turn ourselves away. So often in that idea of forgiveness, we think that it's just let it go, just move on. And it's not that at all. And what it is sitting with it until we can touch it, look at it, feel it. And if we do that enough in a validating way, at some point in time, something shifts. And especially when we can remind ourselves of the common humanity, and especially when we can remind ourselves of our own mistakes, those are just some of the things that help in that process. And there's no time frame to it. But we do know that when people are capable of forgiving, that it really, really benefits our overall physical health and our mental health. So it said happy people tend to be more forgiving than unhappy people. And this has been studied. Forgiveness is a process that over time includes letting go of negative emotions, thoughts, and behaviors, and replacing those with positive thoughts, emotions, and behaviors toward the offender. There's a very famous picture of, I think it's Pope John Paul, is it the second? Yeah. Sitting with the man who tried to assassinate him. And very, very powerful, because, who among us would want to go and face a person who tried to kill us? And in the Inspire Rewire program that I used to teach back in the day, there's a very famous story, which I won't go into now, about the power of forgiveness and what it actually does to us. And this is not, it's not like the Pope was sitting there saying it was okay that you tried to kill me. He's not saying it was okay. He's saying that, I understand what your struggles were at that time. I know that you're not perfect. And I'm assuming he has some humility and admits that he's not perfect. Um, and they can commune on that level and talk very openly about that. And in which case, I'm told that that man, and I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but he apologized very profusely to the Pope, and the Pope was very gracious and, of course, accepted that. I think even before he offered that apology. Um, and so it doesn't mean that we let someone off the hook or minimize a wrong that was committed. Forgiveness is not releasing the offender for legal obligations either, because we may need to sue someone because for all kinds of reasons. And but that doesn't mean, I mean, that's something that the courts would decide, and based on the law. It's not condoning or excusing, which implies that there's some sort of justification, and it's not forgetting or refusing to remember the event. It's not reconciling, which implies there's restored trust and a contact and a feeling of that. It's not any of those things. It's not pretending that everything is fine. In fact, you never need to say the words, I forgive you, out loud. You don't even have to face the person that you may wish to forgive. What this really is about is the internal process that happens within you, inside you, something that you do to help yourself to come to terms with a past experience that ends your suffering, your pain, your anger, and your resentment around the event. Now, why would we want to do that? Why would we want to try to live without all that anger and resentment? Because it's painful. It's painful to us. And it really is a gift that we can give to ourselves. It's not really got a whole lot to do with the person that did the offending, the person that we might think about forgiving. And as I mentioned, it's not something that even has to happen in person, or, to be in the awareness of the person who's hurt us. It really, really is about that internal process and what happens within us. And, they acknowledge that this is really not very easy, but there are some very significant health benefits. When you forgive, those nagging negative thoughts will eventually go away. And research shows that you'll most likely experience less fear, anger, and depression, not to mention improved sleep, less physical pain, better cardiac function, and increased life satisfaction when you can, in your heart, with a great deal of work, uh, let go of something that has been painful. And they talk about how to do that. They talk about how when thoughts arise, those negative thoughts that really hurt us, and we sort of can get really deep into that, right? We can really feel the pain and the sting that someone has really hurt us. And they're not saying don't do that. They're saying do that, touch into that, feel that, work with that, and watch how it changes. Just like every single other thought that we have that comes into our head, it changes. There is something that happens inside us. Nothing ever stays the same unless we work to keep it the same, which sometimes we do by reminding ourselves over and over and over again of the sting and the hurt and the pain. And there is an importance in doing that, and doing that for who knows how long. And then there comes a time when we decide that we just don't want to wrestle with that. We don't want to be heavy with that. And we're ready to do some work. And that's when forgiveness comes in. And some people experience that in different ways sooner. Some people experience that later. And sadly, there are some people that never experience that. But it really is something that we can cultivate. So this person suggests that when those negative thoughts arise, to practice acceptance. And what does that mean? That means to try to relax your body, to touch into this pain, and to acknowledge to yourself how painful and hurtful that was. That's a very, very important step. And then the next thing is to find ways to calm yourself, to practice all kinds of things that we're grateful for in this moment. We can practice using guided imagery. We can use all kinds of things and tools to help us with those difficult feelings in that moment. And then what we notice is that when you're in that calm and relaxed state or place, you're going to feel less upset about things. So we balance that. So we touch into the negative thoughts and feelings. We accept, we acknowledge, and then at some point we work with that and decide, okay, I recognize that this is making me very, very heavy, and that there's suffering that I'm ready to let go of. And then that's when we might really practice relaxation and guided imagery to temper those thoughts so that they happen eventually less and less. We can conjure up images of the most loving and accepting person that you know and channel them when those negative thoughts and feelings come. To just, so we have on the one hand, in one hand, we're holding, a very vivid image of the person who has harmed us. And we know that and we can feel all that. And then the counterbalance is to, on the other hand, to bring to mind someone or something that represents nothing but peace and calm and love to us, safety. And we can kind of toggle back and forth with that until this becomes less and less, that we decide, yeah, I want to let go of that. And it really is a feeling of that. Many people who practice this talk about feeling lighter, and I feel better because I let that go. You've probably heard people say things like that. And then the next thing that they recommend is to reflect back on your own wrongdoings, because there isn't any one of us who hasn't inadvertently, knowingly, unknowingly hurt someone. You cut somebody off with your car. Did you do that on purpose? Not necessarily. Or are you kind of driving in an aggressive way and you didn't stop for that pedestrian and all of that. Like all of us, every single time, we can probably bring to mind several examples of things that we've done wrong. And then what? Knowing that we're human, that we're not perfect, none of us are. Can we reflect on that? And, it may not be exactly the same. It hardly ever is. But, can you forgive yourself, first of all, for making those mistakes? Have you ever been forgiven by someone who you have hurt? Has someone ever said to you, maybe you've apologized, and has someone ever said to you, thank you for your apology, that means a lot to me? And they don't necessarily say, I forgive you, but you feel it, you sense it, their heart is open to you again. And that really helps us too. More important is to keep drawing upon the times when you've been able to forgive, even small little slights, especially with young children who are very good at making mistakes and need our forgiveness so that they grow up in healthy ways. And that's so important. And when we can honestly say, open our hearts and say, I forgive you. I don't agree with what you did, but I understand and I forgive you. That's so, so powerful. And the research tells us that that doesn't just benefit that person that we're forgiving, it really benefits us. There is just this incredible lightening that happens in our hearts. And then, the idea is to remember that we can do things like this, that it's helpful. And we just need to learn how to do that. And that's what, this is about, is just giving some thoughts to that about, and even right now in this moment, if I invite you to bring to mind someone, and it doesn't have to be anything big. It might be the person who didn't say thank you when you held the door for them and they walked in and almost didn't even see you there. Or it might be something a little stronger than that. But just in this moment, to practice this skill, you want to start small. So can you think of something that someone said or did that just it didn't feel real nice? And what do you want to do with that? Do you want to remind yourself over and over again of how much that hurt and how wrong it was and how selfish they were? Or can you find the humanity? Can you say, well, I know that I've certainly done that, forgotten to say thank you to someone or not held the door, or I've cut people off in traffic, whatever it might be. Because we do that, don't we? When someone is being inconsiderate of us, are there times when we were a little less than considerate of them? Are there times when all of us, because of our own pain and suffering, have acted in ways that were not very thoughtful or considerate of someone else? This is true of every single one of us alive. And so, can we find a way to forgive ourselves? And then, if we can do that, can we bring that to others? So, I'm just going to be silent for a bit and give you an opportunity to think of a situation or a person that injured you in some way, hopefully not a big injury, but in some way, and then work with it in just the ways that I suggested. Accept. Doesn't mean we liked it, doesn't mean we agree. And then the truth is, we have to also acknowledge that we too have hurt others. And we go back and forth until there is this feeling of shifting and maybe an openness in our heart center. So just give that a go for a few minutes. One of my favorite teachers, actually, there's two favorite teachers here, Sharon Salzberg and Tara Brach, talk about simple forgiveness techniques. They're very similar. First of all, it's opening your heart, getting into that compassionate mindset. And again, by maybe practicing a few soothing breaths. So I'm going to invite you to, just bring some soothing breath practices to yourself right now, breathing in through your nose, filling your chest and lungs, exhaling in your own time, allowing your mind to rest right where it is. And then, as I invited you, considering that difficult thing, make contact with the thing that hurts. Did you have hurt pride? Did you feel alone? Did you feel disregarded? Did you feel disrespected? Whatever it was, it's usually some kind of hurt along those lines, isn't it? And we turn toward that pain inside you, the way that you would turn to a child or friend or an animal that was hurt. And can we bring warmth and gentleness to ourselves first? This is really hard. It's true that so and so or that person has said and done things that have really hurt you. It's very, very true. Yeah. And then can you say lines like this? I am aware of the pain that you have caused me, and I feel that hurt and pain. I don't want to be heavy with that any longer. I offer forgiveness. I offer you forgiveness because I don't want to be heavy with that pain. I release myself and I release you. And we breathe in again, exhaling to whatever extent is possible. And the first times that we try this, maybe not very much happens, and that's okay. That's not a failure. It's the beginning of this incredibly powerful thing. And it's not going to come easy sometimes because some of us have been very, very badly hurt. And no one said it is easy, but it really comes down to that. And I'm not sure if you're noticing, but there's some real similarities between a forgiveness practice and a loving kindness practice, isn't there? Yeah. You can't force yourself to get over painful feelings, but you can treat yourself kindly and create space to accept your own mistakes and the mistakes of others. And when we do this, we are lighter. We feel connected. We feel lighter. And that is what it means basically to let go. Yeah. So here's some other very powerful words about accepting imperfection in ourselves, in others, in the world, in nature. Especially when we think about sometimes how very strong and powerful nature can be. I'm reminded of I was walking after the big windstorm that we had, and I must have seen two little nests that were blown out of the trees with broken little eggs, and it made me sad. And then these birds are going to have to build another nest and work hard to lay some more eggs, and how hard that is. And do they resent nature because of that? We're all part of nature. So yeah, but the cruelty sometimes of all of us, including Mother Nature, we can spend a lot of time wishing that things were different, and that in itself brings a lot of suffering. Everything is forgivable, whether it's our laziness, our self hatred, our impatience, our resentment of others. Um, Everything is forgivable. And that's what we hope to achieve with a forgiveness practice. So, um, I can suggest, but I'm mindful of the time. I want us to also bring some relaxation to ourselves, and as you guys know, the way that we do that is to sit and make that connection between our bodies and the surfaces that we're resting on. And so I invite you to notice points of contact. If you're sitting, of course, those points of contact are going to be on your sit bones and your lower back to your upper back, depending on what you're resting on. If you're lying down, there are going to be different points of contact. But can you bring awareness to those points of contact just right now? Why? Because they're happening right now. And most of us can feel those sensations, right? Of the pressure, the heaviness. So just touch into that in this moment, the points of contact. And as you do that, I'm going to invite you to take in a lovely, deep breath, filling your chest and lungs. And exhale when you feel the urge to exhale and release. Letting go, letting go, letting go of that awareness of those points of contact, and bringing to mind the top of your head. Just in your mind's eye, if it helps to visualize the top of your head, or can you feel something at the top of your head? Maybe there's not much to notice in this moment. So letting your awareness now flow down to your face, letting your eyes be soft and your brows smooth. And unhinging your jaw, open and close, maybe a little jaw wobble. Just bringing in a feeling of softness, of letting go any stress or tension in your face. And bringing awareness now to your throat, back of your neck. Whatever you can notice, perhaps it's the coolness of the breath as you breathe in that travels down your esophagus into your lungs. just following that sensation for a little bit as you breathe in and out. And with each breath in and out, as you exhale, letting go, softening a little bit more and a little bit more. As you bring awareness now to your shoulders and those large muscles, the trapezius muscles that connect your shoulders to your neck, thick bands of muscles. And just in this moment, if you'd like to reach up and kind of give yourself a little massage of those thick muscles, they do store a lot of tension there. So just feeling into that and then letting your hands drop. That might sort of create even more awareness of those muscles, inviting them to be soft and let go. As you bring awareness inside your shoulders, appreciating the connection of your arms to your shoulders, noticing the posture and the position of your arms. Are they folded? Are they straight? Are they resting on something? Are they bent? And now, ever so gently, sensing the weight of your arms. It's gravity gently, gently pulling and cradling your arms. And into your hands. If it serves you, flexing your hands a little bit and then letting them relax and noticing the aliveness that that movement brings. Maybe there's tingling or pulsing. Maybe there's warmth or coolness. Whatever you can notice about your hands and your fingers in this moment. And let's come back to our upper bodies, to our shoulder blades and our upper back, to our collarbones and our breastbone and ribs. Just pausing for a moment to notice whatever sensations you can notice there. Perhaps there's movement with each breath. Inhaling and expansion, and then as you exhale, contraction. Following that rhythm for a few moments. Resting with the breath. But noticing too that if your mind is beginning to wander away, as I've said so many times, that's normal. That's what minds do. Very gently bring yourself back to awareness of the breath or awareness of the movement of the breath. Whatever you can notice in this very intent and gentle way about your upper body. Following that for another minute or so. You might find that soothing and grounding. And if we don't, I bet you there's some judgment somewhere, some little message you're giving yourself like, oh, I can't do this, or it's not a problem. Just know that you're human. Should I say this? Can you forgive yourself for letting your mind wander and come right back? 'Cause that's what minds do. They wander, they problem solve, they think, they get creative, and it's beautiful. And we can decide what we bring awareness to, and we can bring ourselves back again and again. That's the practice. Just like that. And if there is any tension or tightness in your upper back or your chest, inviting there to be a letting go, a softening, and perhaps taking in a deeper breath, filling the chest and lungs, and a lovely slow exhale out. And if that felt good, one more, just like that, breathing in and out. Slowly, 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 letting go. As we bring up our awareness now of our abdomen and our low back and our lower abdomen, our bellies, our midsection, just before our sit bones. There's a lot happening in our bodies. And in this moment, you might be aware of digestion happening, if you've had something to eat, or maybe there's a different urge. Maybe you need to make sure you use the washroom after this meditation. Whatever you can be aware of in this moment is very, very helpful, grounding information. The more awareness that you can have of your body, the more that you can know and help yourself if you're struggling or not feeling 100%. The more that you know that you might need to rest or relax. Or you might also understand that those pickles didn't agree with me. Whatever you can be aware of. Such powerful information. And taking in a deeper breath as you let awareness of your midsection go, and you bring up that your hips and your pelvic area, your sit bones, the large, powerful muscles of your legs, your upper legs. Pausing here for a moment to really sense whatever you can sense about this very sturdy part of our body. And how grounded and connected we might feel to the surface that we're resting on as we really sense into the weight of our bodies. And if there's any tension or tightening or feeling of being on guard or just something that you'd like to let go of, then invite there to be a letting go, softening with your awareness. So if there's something tight, letting it be soft, just like that, again and again. And if it serves, taking a breath in and a lovely, slow and gentle exhale as you bring awareness now to the length of your legs, the largest part of our body, the longest bones and the most powerful muscles. Noticing the position of your legs. Are they bent? Are they straight? Noticing any sensations in your legs. Breathing into your legs. Exhaling. And if there's some tension or tightness, with your gentle awareness, you can invite it to let go, to soften, just like that. Scanning down the length of your legs into your ankles and your feet. What are your feet doing? Are they resting on the floor? Are they reclining in some other way? What can you notice about your feet? Can you sense your socks or your footwear? Or maybe you're lucky and your feet are barefoot. There's something else that you can sense. What can you notice about the sensations in your feet right now? And I'm going to invite you to wiggle your toes a little. And now stop. The aliveness that that movement creates. Notice if there's warmth or tingling or pulsing in your toes. In this moment, appreciating that you have bathed your entire body from the top of your head to the tips of your toes with your awareness, your very focused and gentle awareness. And I'm going to invite you to scan through again, starting wherever you like. And if there's been a reaccumulation of any tension or tightness, to notice it and very compassionately invite it to let go, soften. And in any meditation, in any part of our day, when we are aware that there's something that's tense or tight, we can bathe it with our breath and we can invite it to let go and to soften. So scanning through again, noticing if there are any parts of you that have become tense or tight. Letting go, releasing, softening. Take a few more moments. Before we end this body scan practice, I'm going to invite you to do a little bit of cyclic breathing with me, where we taught that a couple of weeks ago, where you breathe in and then take another little breath in and then exhale nice and slow. And let's do that again. Breathe in a little bit deeper and then exhale nice and slow. And again, breathe in and again a little bit more and then exhale nice and slow. Let's do that 2 more times. Breathing in a little bit more, exhaling nice and slow. One more time. Breathing in a little bit more, exhaling nice and slow. What are you able to notice right now in your body? Is there any sensation that you're kind of curious about or you're intrigued by? I can share with you that doing that little bit of breathing, the cyclic breathing, just caused a little bit of a lightheadedness that I felt at the top of my head. It's very pleasant. What were you able to notice? Maybe there wasn't much. That's perfectly normal too. Hmm. Just in this moment, because it's spring, can you bring to mind something that you perhaps noticed it's very just about to bud or spring out of its bud, or maybe there's something that's poking through the earth? Can you bring to mind something that you might have seen? Really bringing to mind that aliveness, that moment of growth and renewal and forgiveness. Forgiveness for the cold, cold winter, the snow, the sleet, the ice. Bringing to mind and perhaps even expressing a bit of gratitude. We can end our practice with just a few words of loving kindness intention. Those of you who've been doing this now for as long as we have, you probably know them off by heart, but I'll just end with probably the most powerful one, at least the one that our world is in desperate need of right now. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be free from pain and suffering. May all beings everywhere, including myself, be free from pain and suffering. May we find peace, forgiveness, acceptance, freedom. May all beings everywhere find peace, acceptance, forgiveness, and freedom. May all beings everywhere fill their hearts and minds with love and kindness and peace. May all beings everywhere, including myself, fill our hearts and minds with love and kindness and peace. May this peace begin within each and every one of us. Let there be peace, kindness, forgiveness. Let there be peace. Let's all breathe in very, very deeply. And as we exhale, we can imagine that the power of these words is released from our collective hearts and minds, and that it travels around the world to all living things and all beings, including ourselves, that are in need of peace and love and kindness. And I'll chime the bell, and we'll let that mark the end of our practice tonight. Chiming the bell. bit louder now.